Hi, this is Stan Bush.
Hi, this is Stephanie Calvert.
This is John Payne.
This is Jack Hughes.
Hey everyone, this is Britt Lightning from Vixen.
Hey everybody, this is Prescott Niles.
Hi, I'm Carrie Stevens.
Hello, I'm Kofi Baker.
You're listening to Play That Rock and Roll.
This is not a test. This is Play That Rock and Roll. I'm your host, Joe K, and today is our first episode of 2025. And our guest is the frontman for the Jimmy Buffett tribute show, Margaritas in Paradise. And his name is Corey Spector. We are going to be talking about Jimmy Buffett a lot on this channel in 2025. So I wanted to kick off the year with a conversation with someone who has a close connection to Jimmy's music. Margaritas in Paradise is presented by Tad Entertainment, and this is definitely a show I want to see. Jimmy's music was meant to be experienced live and with fellow Parrotheads, so I am really happy that Tad has put this show together so fans can hear that music live in concert again. In this interview, we talk about what fans can expect at a Margaritas in Paradise show, how they put the setlist together, and what Jimmy's music means to Corey. He also shares his experiences of seeing Jimmy in concert and visiting the original Margaritaville. Now, Corey is also a solo performer with a career outside of Margaritas in Paradise. So we will also talk about how he got into the music business, his favorite songs to play live when he's not doing the Jimmy Buffett stuff, and he shares some great stories about crossing paths with music legends like James Taylor and Max Weinberg. If you want to learn more about Corey, you can find him on Facebook, and you can also check out his website, CoreySpector.com. You can learn more about Margaritas in Paradise by finding Tad Entertainment on all social media platforms, and also their website, tadmgmt.com. Corey will be on tour for most of 2025, so check out those websites to see if he'll be playing in a town near you. And if you get a chance to see him, say hello afterwards, as he does meet and greets after every show, and he loves meeting fellow Parrotheads. And candidly speaking, he's just about the nicest guy I've ever met, so I'm really hoping that Margaritas in Paradise will play near my neck of the woods soon. But with that, here's my conversation with the frontman of the Jimmy Buffett tribute show, Margaritas in Paradise, Corey Spector. Okay, we are here with Corey Spector from Margaritas in Paradise, which is a Jimmy Buffett concert experience celebration show. Corey, it's so great to meet you. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks a lot for having me, Joe. It's wonderful to be here from across the country. We are very excited.
And I'm also very impressed by your setup there. Is that just a tease of some of the stuff that fans will see on stage? Or is that just how you live?
No, I wish it was the way I lived, because that'd be a great life to have. I mean, that was Jimmy's life. But no, this is part of the show experience. We believe in bringing this decor. You will see these guys here. They'll be on stage. Because when you walk in, and we get a lot of great comments from people, is that when they walk in, they feel like they're in Key West. That's the idea. We want to give you that Key West Caribbean island feel to the songs that Jimmy made everybody so happy with in that regard. So yes, it's part of that.
That's one of the great things about Jimmy's career. He's got a lot of like fun, memorabilia and stuff that fans can get involved with, and it's so cool that you bring that as part of the show. But let's talk about the genesis of Margaritas in Paradise. This is a relatively new show. You haven't been doing it for too long. How did it get started? How did you join? How did you become the Jimmy Buffett of this show?
Well, I think TAD Management, which is a company here in Phoenix, Arizona, that's one of the largest, I'd say, tribute entertainment companies, either in the United States or in the Southwest or whatever. They had a situation where they wanted to do a real great Jimmy Buffett tribute experience. I had auditioned for them a while back because I'm a solo artist myself. I got a phone call about 2.5 years ago from their VP of operations and said, Corey, what would you like to try and be Jimmy Buffett? We would like to put together a great show and bring it across the country. And Jimmy was my experience from the 1970s. I was in college right in the time that Jimmy's great songs, Volcano and Margaritaville and Cheeseburger in Paradise, all that came to being. And that was his crux of his major commercial success. And we all connected with that. So I was all for it in that regard. So I basically jumped aboard. We have been having a fantastic experience ever since. A Jimmy Buffett concert is not like others in the regard that he is the king of escapism. If you want to get away for a night and have some fun, listen to some fun songs, some rollicking, fun, laughable songs, and have thoughts about drinking margaritas, this is your night.
And I want to drill down on the phrase concert experience a little bit, because you're not a cover band. You know, I tell this story on the show before. Years ago, I saw the Who tribute band or cover band or whatever, and it was a group of guys that were just in t-shirts and jeans, and they were playing Who songs, and it really wasn't much of a tribute. It was just some guys playing songs they liked, and that's fine, but that's not the same as what you are out on the road doing. You are bringing a concert experience that involves like costumes, a big focus on the set list and other things. Tell me about what concert experience, a Jimmy Buffett concert experience means to you, and what that is on stage.
Well, what we like to do is people always know of what we call the parrot heads, the dedicated Jimmy Buffett fans. But besides the parrot heads, we want people to become parrot heads. And to do that, we want to bring the audience into the show. We want to be able to, when we do certain songs, we want the audience to be the coral reefers out there. So we are very much heavily in wanting to be interactive with you guys. Now, again, you don't have to be crazy, but you will want to have that fun. I mean, we have people who come wearing parrot heads on their things. They come in grass skirts. But the people that we find coming also are wanting to experience Jimmy for the first time. And therefore, we want the parrot heads to share with the people who will come by the time that concert is over, are going to be a big Jimmy Buffett fan or are going to do the certain things. So there are certain songs that are in a Jimmy Buffett concert that we sit down and we tell the audience, this is what you're going to do because we don't want you to kind of lose in the experience of it. So we take you on a journey that we hope that by the time you're done, and in 80% of the cases, people become parrot head fans if you aren't parrot heads. So the audience, we want you to have fun. That's the whole idea. There'll be some things that we will do that you'll just have a fun time. So it's not just sitting and listening, it's actually participating and having a good time. And by the time you leave, we want you to feel the sand at your feet. That's the whole idea.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad you mentioned Alpine Valley. Yes, Jimmy's had a lot of legendary shows there. That's where I saw him. I saw him in 2009 and 2016 and 2019, and those were some of the best shows I ever saw. A big part of why, I sought you out for this show is because I'm so excited that your show is bringing his music back in a really authentic way for fans to come out, wear the themed shirts, to have the land shark gear and the Margaritaville gear, and to celebrate together, because his fan base
was very much a community. Like we made some friends there that day, when we went to those shows. So
Right.
that's very cool. So here's a question that might have a whole litany of answers for you. But as you are the Jimmy Buffett of the show, what is your favorite part of playing that role?
Well, there's one added thing we do also, that when we'll have a meet and greet at the end of the show, so anybody will come and be able to share their experiences. And I've had some wonderful stories of parents who have brought their kids and tell me some wonderful stories. That we'll save that for another time, maybe.
Yeah.
But the other thing also is we tell some stories about the songs. We tell a little bit about Jimmy's life. So therefore, when you hear, I'll give you one secret, but I'm not going to tell you the rest. And because this is going to be the show. The son of a sailor. Jimmy's granddad was a steamship captain that sailed the world and came back and told Jimmy all his stories. His dad was a naval engineer. So they both traveled the world, and that's how Jimmy got his love of the sea and everything. As we go through certain songs, we tell those stories, and people understand more of where that relation is. And there's a whole bunch of those done, and there's some great funny stories too about certain songs. So you kind of become a feel of a little bit of the history of Jimmy's experiences as writing those songs. And we've gotten a lot of positive feedback from audiences in the meeting, but that's we didn't know about that song or whatever. So you get both a history, you get the love, you get the participation, the fun. That's what this whole experience is in that regard.
Wow. So meeting the fans, hearing their memories, sharing stories, telling them things they didn't know before. Would you say that's, as far as your involvement, you're concerned, like, is that your favorite part of being Jimmy?
Yes, yes. Being able to hear stories of people who have gone to 25 Jimmy Buffett concerts and then come back and tell you what a great show this was and things like that. To have a story, I'll tell one other story, and this happened in Wisconsin, in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. We did a concert. We had some parents with she must have been like 16, 17, and she was all dressed attire, looking like me in a certain way. And what he felt so heartfelt was that he had gotten tickets for Jimmy, but Jimmy passed away. She never got a chance to see it. So this was her first experience with them. And they had the most wonderful time, and that touches my heart. That's the experience of a Jimmy Buffett concert in that regard. So those are the kind of tales, and that's what I live for, in both having fun and all the different stories and touching people. And Jimmy touched so many people, so I'm so honored that Tad had me become this part of this show and be able to do this in Tad management.
That is really beautiful. Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's definitely a fan community, and that music means so much to people. Speaking of the music, Jimmy has a massive catalog, and he changed his set lists, from tour to tour. I mean, he was famous for saying he's got the big 8, which are the 8 songs that, fans come to expect every show. So obviously you have to factor that into a set list, but, given what he's famous for performing, given, how many albums he has, given the cover songs that he was known to do in concert, what are the things that go into building the set list? You don't have to give it away, but what are the things you consider when you guys build the set?
When we build a set list, we want you to be able to participate in almost every song. We do some of the cover songs that Jimmy did religiously on his concert tours, and therefore those songs will bring everybody in because they can sing along. Like I said, we want to hear you from the audience, and that's what it is. And therefore, and they tend to join in and want to be part of it. So we will always, and then we'll always find a song or two that is very strong Jimmy Buffett, but also hits home. There's a song on A1A that Jimmy called one of the most important songs he ever wrote. Now, again, I'm not going to I'll let you say that for the show. It's not a song that people always hear. Parrot heads will probably know it, but the other parrot heads probably don't. But when we tell the reason why he wrote this song and stuff like that, they tend to want to listen. And when they hear the words, they understand why Jimmy Buffett loved Key West so much and things like that. So it's a draw of it's a whole concert fun experience, but it's a one-on-one experience of understanding Jimmy himself and his life and things like that in it too.
Oh, very
So,
good.
yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about your career in music before you joined this Margaritas in Paradise show.
Yeah.
I understand that you've been a solo artist, and I've seen some of your non-Jimmy songs on YouTube, and they're great. So let's go back in time a bit. Let's go back to like the '70s.
Go way back in time.
Yeah.
I'm double your age, I think, at this point in time. So yes, I'll go way back in time for you.
Yeah. I have to live vicariously through you at this part, but
That's okay. I love that. I love
yeah.
that. It's okay. I live through you and your parents. That's how it works.
That's
Exactly how it works.
Well, back in the day when you were listening to Jimmy on the radio, I'm sure he was a favorite of yours. But like, who were some of the other artists that really inspired you just about getting into music as a young man?
That goes way, way, way back, and I'll start it because it starts with this one group that still today is probably the biggest selling group every year. When I was 6 years old, my brother pushed me in front of a black and white TV set on February 9th, 1964, and the Beatles and the Ed Sullivan Show.
Wow.
I was young, but to see that experience, and my brother, who, God bless his soul, had every single. Now, singles with a hole in it, with the plastic. Got to tell the kids how that works in a certain way. But he had every single and every song. And when I was a kid, I just locked myself in his room and I would listen to the Four Seasons and the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and Herman's Hermits. All those groups that nowadays, when you play to all the different generations, they still know the songs. It's an amazing thing. So the Beatles were the first thing to me. I was a little kid who thought he was George Harrison with a baseball bat on a bed, thinking that was a stage. That's how it started. And then as time went on, I had to learn how to play myself, the piano and the guitar. So I never took lessons, but that was the influence. So as I grew up and older, and then as I got into the 70s and I was 12, 14, 16, the people of James Taylor and Cat Stevens and Carole King and Elton John. And I gravitate to those 60s, 70s, early 80s music as the ones that inspired me and were part of my life, because the lyrics and the harmonies and the meanings of the songs just took me to that place. And I find that when I play solo-wise today, that's the music I play. I go up to like the mid-'80s of Bruce Springsteen and things like that. I play piano and guitar solo-wise. But I find that the younger generation, like you said, in a certain degree, they'll come up to me and they'll pick the certain songs and they'll say, that's the song I remember as being 10 and 11 years old and my dad playing those songs on the radio at home. So they have a memory of their childhood through that music, and that music continues to move. So that's those. Jimmy Buffett became part of that in my high school and college years, because that's where Volcano and Changes in Latitude, that was his big thing. We sang Cheeseburgers in Paradise. You know, I like mine with lettuce. We sang that to go into class almost every day. It's kind of a fun thing to do. So, so all that came to being, and that's where my love of music came to growing up to being in that regard.
Very good. One artist that comes out of that singer-songwriter scene in the 70s and into the 80s was that we've talked a lot about on this show is Warren Zevon. Was Warren Zevon somebody you were into?
Yes. Werewolves of London, all that kind of stuff. There was the pop artist fame, and then there was what you call the unique artist fame, and Warren was in that unique category.
Yes.
See, he had these great hits. He only had 3 or 4 hits, but then he had his own cult following of people, and a lot of artists loved Warren Zevon. He was like an artist too, in a certain regard. In that regard, yes, definitely.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah. Okay. Well, so you you have a great base of music that inspired you and music that you have enjoyed playing your whole career. But what was it that made you decide to actually enter music as a career? What got you started in the music business?
Well, it goes back to the Beatles. Uh, again, being very young.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to be an artist at a young age, but I think John Lennon put it best. When John Lennon was a young kid, he went to a movie theater and he saw an Elvis Presley movie, and all the girls in the theater were screaming and yelling, and John's famous line was, "That's a good job. I think I could do that." So, and that was his line. Now, for me, I mean, it was a love of music also, but to be able to see that a whole generation of people come so together in the music. And that's where, it goes back to that situation, to be able to please audiences in that way. So that's where I started with the music itself myself. And, so it takes me back to there. And it's amazing to me today that the Beatles are so much prevalent as they were 50 years ago to each generation of music in that regard. So,
cool.
And again, I like all forms of music, so it's not like I don't like any other forms of music, but it seems like when I perform, whether it's Jimmy Buffett, whether it's solo, that when you perform those songs, every generation can sing together.
Yeah.
Into it itself. And that's, and that's what drove me to want to play. I didn't take lessons. I had to learn it myself. I was very lucky that my grandfather gave my mom the piano, and there's a unique history. I learned by numbers at first, how to do it. Back in 1969, 1970, they invented the little mini piano organ type thing. It was like this big, and it was like $50. And for the first time, anybody could actually buy something for their kid to learn on. And in those were little books of music like Yesterday and those songs. And it had little numbers that you put on the plastic keys, 1, 2, 3, 4, to each key. And then the book said Yesterday, 8, 7, 7, 6, 9, 12, whatever. And that's how I started to learn how to play music. And my brother said, well, if I take a pencil and I draw it on the keys of the piano, then you can play the piano instead of that. And luckily, that sheet music had the actual notes in the keys and the scales. Yeah. So all the time, learning those books, I didn't need the number anymore. I knew that line and that note was that key on the piano. And then everything started to make sense, and music. And also, he took 2 weeks of guitar lessons, threw the guitar in the closet, and I grabbed it. That was the big thing too. So, yep. And that started off that too. So that's how my career learning how to play started and the whole thing.
Real cool.
Yeah.
So, I mean, have you always been like a touring musician, or are you usually based out of whatever city you're living in?
The funny thing about me was that I started playing music as a kid. I did it a little bit in college, and at the age of 23, I stopped doing it because here's a story. I was in Florida performing, and I had a guy, and I was playing each night, and a gentleman said, you sound so wonderful, so great. You should hear this guy who's playing at Coconut Grove, at Coconut's at Coconut Grove. Yeah. I said, well, I'm playing so much, I don't get a chance to hear, people play. He said, don't worry, he's been playing there every night for the last 5 years. You'll be able to see him. And at that age, I said, well, maybe I need to get a life. Oh. I have to get married and kids and things like that. So I stopped playing music then. I took 35 years off from performing or anything like that until about 14 years ago when my kids flew the coop. So I kind of did my own life career and things like that. And once the kids flew the coop, I said, I wish I could do this again.
Yeah.
And, you had to stop. And it's like Jimmy's life. Jimmy started playing for tips.
Yep.
So you had to start somewhere. And luckily I had a little bit of savings to hold me off for a while. And I said, I'll give it a year and see if I can make a full-time living and a career. And that was 15 years ago. So it all built, and then Jimmy Buffett became part of that. So I was never really a touring person until now. Now we're touring and doing, we played many, many parts of the country. Oh, I'm sorry, we lost the light. We play many, many theaters across the country. So the last year and a half, 2 years, we've been Washington, West Virginia. We're going off to Connecticut and Pennsylvania and New York and things like that. So the touring has now started.
First of all, talk about living the dream. That sounds awesome. And another dream that I saw you lived just recently, I was looking on your YouTube channel, and I saw that last year you performed with Max Weinberg and his jukebox.
1, 2, 3, 4!
Yes.
I have seen that show twice. I love that show.
Oh,
I gotta ask
wonderful.
you, how did that come to? How did that
Oh
happen?
gosh, that's a story I've got. Can I put it together 1 minute? I don't see. I was performing in Tucson about 2 years ago. A gentleman came up to me because I had a Bruce Springsteen background music in me, and he says, "Oh, that's Springsteen." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well," he says, "I actually work with Bruce Springsteen. I work with Max Weinberg." It ended up being Max's manager.
Oh, wow.
Because Max does things, he does, besides E Street, he goes off, he's done things on TV, he's done TV shows like Hawaii Five-0 and things like that. So this is his manager. He used to go to the University of Arizona. I'm in Tucson right now. And so he says, "I'm sorry, I just missed your show." And he was down in Tucson buying a second home, this guy. And he says, "Well, where are you playing next?" So I told him where I was playing, and he came out 2 days later. And the gentleman, and at the time I didn't know who he was. And he says, "Oh, I'd like to sing with you." Because when I perform solo-wise, if someone wants to sing with me, that's part of the experience. It's like Jimmy Buffett. I want the audience to be involved. And I keep my fingers crossed that someone's coming up is going to sing pretty good. If not, I sing louder than him so I can work that out in some regard. But and he sang pretty good, and I wasn't sure if he was really blowing steam about telling who he was. So I had an experience that James Taylor had seen me one time, and so I told him that experience, and he texted me a picture of him with James Taylor. So I know he wasn't. He wasn't. I knew this guy was telling the truth. Well, a couple years later, Max's show comes to town. We exchanged numbers, and things like that. And when he came to town, I texted this guy and said, "Look, I'm just letting you know I'm going to be at the show. Maybe I can come backstage and say hi since we've seen each other." But so he came out. He said, "What are you playing?" Because it was in Tucson. He came out and he sang with me this time around. The first time he didn't sing, and we sang together. And at the end, he said, "Well, now that I sang with you, maybe I can have you sing with Max." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So that's how the experience all happened in that regard. And I was honored and fantastic to be able to go up and play with Max's band and everything. Max's band is going to be playing Liverpool next. The Cavern Club where the Beatles played.
And speaking of Beatles, you played a Beatles song with them, right?
That's exactly what it was. So, and Paul McCartney's could be there in town. So it's kind of a cool experience. So we stay in touch, me and Max's manager, because when he comes to Tucson, he tries to see if he can come see me play and things like that. So that was the connection with Max itself. Yes.
Oh, that's spectacular. That must have been a real special day. And it makes me think of one of my favorite questions to ask anytime I have an artist on the show. Looking back at your, now that you've been touring for like 15 years, and this could be a Margaritas in Paradise question or a solo career question. When you think of all the gigs that you've played in your life, are there any, it doesn't have to be the best memory ever, but what is the first memory that comes to mind as being a specific show that was really special to you?
Well, I think it's a show that I didn't know. And it goes back to try and tell the story as short as I can. Again, being on stage with Max, that's something that's special in regard. But the other one was I was performing in Tucson, and a gentleman who I did not know was in the audience. I bumped into him afterwards, and that was James Taylor. James Taylor was in town on a concert. I bought the tickets for the concert, but I was playing a brunch at one of the resorts. Was performing, and as I was packing my stuff up in the front rotunda area to leave, a glass door's open behind me. A guy walks by. I didn't see his face. I just saw a tall, lanky gentleman with a cap like mine, Cape Cod shorts. Saw the John Lennon glasses, and I go, James Taylor? He turns around and says, yes, I'm James Taylor. And at that point, I said, oh my God. So I walked up to him for a moment. He was very nice. He could have kept walking, but he says, okay,
Yeah.
let's talk for a minute. So because the car is out there waiting for him with the van and the people that go to the concert. And I thanked him for all his music, because he's the reason why I was able to figure out how to play guitar and things like that. And I thanked him for his music. And I said, I'm a professional musician because of you, and I just played the brunch downstairs. And he said, that was you? He said, yeah. He said, you're pretty damn good. And so I basically talked for another minute. I knew he had to leave, and then he had to go. And to have your icon be in the audience and then telling you that you're good, my tombstone's not going to say Corey Spector, born and raised. It's going to say Corey Spector, James Taylor said he was pretty damn good. That's my tombstone. So that's the experience. I mean, there's many touching experiences. I have a lot of them with Jimmy, as Jimmy Buffett thing too, people. But that one, I don't think I could ever match that.
Oh,
match
yeah.
close, but that's the other one itself.
Oh, that is so great to hear. Well, that's a dream come true. Of all the songs that you play, let's start with Jimmy. What are your favorite songs that mean the most to you when you play Margaritas in Paradise?
Again, Finn's is always one of the funs, because we really get everybody involved in that song. So it's always fun to talk about that song and play. Come Monday's very special. But the one that hits me the most is a song that people don't know too much about, and it's because Jimmy called it one of his most favorite songs, and that's called Tin Cup Chalice.
Oh,
It's the A1A album, and it's because that's the one that Jimmy wrote about how when he discovered that Key West and that style of life is what made it for him, because he never searched out Key West as a purpose place to go. It happened by accident that he went down there, and then it all happened in its own way, with his very good friend Jerry Jeff Walker, which another great artist. So that, to me, the lyrics to that song put you in a spot of why you love and why he loved it, because no matter where he went in his life, he always dreamed about his early days in Key West, and that song itself is something that does that. So that's sometimes, like you said, like you find a song that's not the one that's the most famous out there.
yeah.
And we talk about that song in the concert itself, so therefore people understand and they get a chance to listen to it.
And that's a rewarding one to play. When you think of the music you've performed outside of the Margaritas in Paradise show, when you think back on these last 15 years or so, what are the songs that mean the most to you outside of Jimmy that you play that really are rewarding for you?
Here Comes the Sun. The Beatles. The great thing about that is that when you perform that song, you can see people who are 18 years old as much as people who are 65 years old, 70, love that song and sing the song with you.
Yeah.
When you can play songs that people will just kind of like be drawn. I play a lot of places that are dinner places, so they're not coming to buy a ticket to a concert.
Right.
But the thing is, when you can see them in the audience being drawn to you, not because it's just me and my talent, but the song itself. And the song has a memory to them, and then they come and share that with you. That's what else. Here Comes the Sun, Elton John's Your Song. The fun part of Sweet Caroline, where everyone starts to sing along and things like that. So it's hard to choose which one. It's hard to choose which one in that regard. But those are probably the three that I can think of that touches people, in different ways.
Yeah.
Things.
So, going back to before you got started as Margaritas in Paradise, did you ever actually have a chance to see Jimmy play in concert?
I would have loved to.
Yeah.
Oh no, I take that back. I take that back. I did see Jimmy.
Oh, you did? Okay.
It's a very because it goes back. It was a benefit concert. It wasn't the Jimmy Buffett concert itself.
Interesting.
Okay, so here's the story. There's a place called Sierra Tucson here in Tucson, Arizona, which I think still is today, which was a recovery facility when the stars would have too much to drink or too much with an alcohol or a drug problem. And so it was one of the first well-known ones across the country, and it was here in Tucson, Arizona, and still is. Well, it fell on a little bit of hard times, so they had a fundraiser. And who performed that night was Ringo Starr,
Oh, wow.
James Taylor, Jimmy Buffett, Niles Lofgren from the E Street Band, and they had it at the McHale Center, which is where the University of Arizona has this big, it's big arena.
Did you pick this lineup? You've got connections to all of these.
No.
guys just
I
on
mean,
what we
this has
talked
just
about.
happened to be, and so
That's incredible.
And so James Taylor, Jimmy Buffett, Ringo Starr all played in that night, and Jimmy Buffett played that night. So I remember that now as part. I loved Jimmy during the years that was there, but I never had gone to a Jimmy Buffett concert. But now that you said that, it recalled me back to that time. So each person played 3 or 4 or 5 songs itself, and they got on stage with each other a little bit too in the same regard. So
Well, that sounds amazing because, the Jimmy Buffett concert, I mean, that's so well known, but you're talking about you got a very unique Jimmy Buffett experience by seeing a show like that. Do you remember about roughly what year that was?
that had to be. Let me see. I came to Tucson. That had to be around 1985 or something like that, 83.
Wow.
I have to look it up, 84, 85. It was, they had a golf tournament. I mean, Ringo showed up for the golf tournament, just hit a club or two, and things like the other artists, I think, just came and played that night or something like that in that
Oh,
regard.
that's really great.
But it was especially because, and these were the people that had gone to this particular rehab center at some point in their lives and wanted to play to raise money, raise funds for the place.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've talked to someone else on this show about Ringo's, recovery and how he became a great advocate for people who went into that. He would sponsor people, he would help people. It was very important to him to help people get sober. So I that's awesome that that you have a story about that. So okay, how about another funny Jimmy connection? Have you ever been to a Margaritaville restaurant or resort?
Yes.
Okay. I have too.
Not
Not bad, right?
I was down in Key West. We went to the Margaritaville bar there and the store
Oh,
there.
the original.
Right. Yes. Now, also, just so you know, our band was part of the Margaritaville, the first annual Margaritaville weekend.
Oh, great.
Key West. We were very fortunate that the southernmost resort hired us to do the Jimmy Buffett concerts for that first weekend. So the Margaritas in Paradise is the band that performed in Key West on that weekend.
Oh, terrific.
yeah,
What
so-
year was that?
That was this year.
Oh, that was this year. Okay,
It was the
just
first
started.
annual. Since Jimmy's passing, there is now a Jimmy Buffett Day.
Yes.
Right, and that's the first weekend they had in Key West, and we were the band that performed. We performed on a Friday night on the Atlantic Ocean, and on Sunday afternoon we played on the Gulf of Mexico, only being a mile apart from each other because that's Key West. That's what it's all about.
Oh, that's great.
We're very fortunate to be able to do that, and we had a wonderful time doing it for everybody too in that regard. And
And
that's
that was on Jimmy Buffett Day?
that was on Jimmy Buffett weekend. It was August 31st.
Okay.
And September 1st. So we actually played on Labor Day weekend, which is Jimmy Buffett's coming Monday song.
Yeah, I love the Jimmy Buffett Day because they put that on August 30th. And you know what else that day is? My birthday.
Happy birthday, Joe. You got it.
I lucked out with that. Yeah.
You got it. That's right. We played the 30th, the 31st, then the first. It was the 30th, the Friday.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, we played the Friday and the Sunday, so we played on your birthday down there.
Oh.
We played in your honor. We didn't know you, but we played in your honor in that regard. There you go.
I dig it. Okay, well that's awesome. Yeah, so let's wrap up here with a little bit of what fans can expect when they come out to see you this year, because you're going to be touring for most of 2025. Is that correct?
Right. We already have our 3 months of touring, and then we start doing the summer shows and so on. Again, we want you to have a wonderful time. This is the world of escapism. When no matter what's going on in your lives, whether you're having good times, tough times, whatever, you leave that all behind. You come into the show. We want you to feel the Gulf Stream waters of Florida and the Gulf of Mexico. We want you to have the sand at your feet. We want you to think of margaritas. We want you to think of tiki bars. Just have a fun time. And you're going to love the music anyway, because the music's fun. It's a great band. But the Parrot Heads, we welcome you, and we want the Parrot Heads to become Parrot Heads, by the end of the night itself. Okay. So it is a fun experience. That's what we want you to be. Have fun. That's the whole key. And that's what Jimmy wants. Jimmy's last words, keep the party going. That's what we want to do. That's our main theme.
Yeah, that is a hell of a mantra. Keep the party going. And
Right.
if they come out and see you, you mentioned this earlier, you do the meet and greets after the show. Is that a good opportunity for fans to get a photo with you, say hello, that
Yes,
kind of thing?
definitely. There'll also be some T-shirts if you like it. There'll be some
Yeah.
Margaritas In Paradise T-shirts to take home with you. There'll be meet and greet. We do some fun things that you could be able to. We'll sign everything that's needed for every of the fans. And I want to hear a story. So therefore, please come tell me Jimmy. I mean, I've had people who said that they've seen Jimmy Buffett 20 times. They love the show. So I'd love to hear those things. So, the idea is to converse and to share Jimmy along with everybody.
Wow, well said. Okay. Well, Corey, this has been a real joy speaking with you today. I wanted to have you on the show because a big thing that we talk about on this podcast is how do we as fans and the music community keep classic rock, that amazing music from the 60s, 70s, 80s, how do we keep all that stuff alive? How do we keep it going? And, sadly, Jimmy's no longer with us, but shows like Margaritas in Paradise and artists like yourself keep that, not just that music going, but it gives the community an opportunity to reconnect.
Right.
So I just have a lot of appreciation for what you do. And I can just tell you personally, it has been a hell of a lot of fun chatting with you here today. So thank you so much for coming by.
And thank you for keeping this music going and wanting to do that. That is 50% of it. We're the other 50%, but You're the 50% that wants to keep that happiness for everybody moving forward. And I thank you in the same way. And I'm looking forward to meeting you and sharing some more stories and fun.
That sounds great. Thank you, Corey. It has been fun.
Fins up. That's what it all about. Okay, Joe? Thank you so much, buddy.
Hey, thanks for listening. There's no shortage of great content out there, so you choosing to spend some time listening to this show means quite a lot. If you're so inclined, please give this podcast a 5-star rating and a positive review wherever you get your podcasts. And share our links wherever you can. Or mention this show to anyone you know looking for a podcast recommendation. All of this helps us out a great deal, and I appreciate it. You can connect with us on social media too. We are at Play That Podcast on Facebook, Threads, Blue Sky, and even TikTok. Or we are at Play That Rock and Roll on YouTube and Instagram. Please post a comment and say hello. Finally, Play That Rock and Roll is a proud member of the Pantheon podcast community. So if you're looking for more music podcasts beyond this one, trust me, start with Pantheon. You won't be disappointed. Otherwise, I appreciate any and all efforts you take to support us here at Play That Rock and Roll. Be sure to join us next time for more great music and stories from the world of classic rock.